Hi, it's Judy. I'm here with some more relationship insights and advice. It is January 24th, 2020, Friday, and this video is meant to be timeless, so no matter when you're tuning in, it should be relevant for you. And for my new subscribers, welcome and thank you for tuning in. So today I'm addressing the age-old question, is he or she going to change? And it's tied in with the same question of should I stay or should I go? And I don't have to go into why people ask this, because if you're here, you're probably already asking this question. And almost all of my clients ask me this question in some way, shape, or form, because if we're in a relationship, we're typically banging our head against the wall, trying to find harmony if there isn't any. So this becomes very relevant quickly, because all of us are wanting and needing and desiring more harmony and peace. Even if you're an extrovert, and even if you, like, some people do like a certain amount of chaos. Some people like a certain amount of excitement, and some people get addicted to drama. But I'm not really talking about that sort of thing. Even if you're the type of person who likes excitement and you're very passionate and you like go and that kind of thing, when it comes to your interpersonal relationship, there comes a point where you just want to relax, you just want to chill, you want that harmony. So if you're not getting it, you're going to ask yourself, you're going to be asking your partner to change. This needs to change, that needs to change. And typically what we in relationships do, I say we because we all do this, including myself, we're asking our partner to do the changing. And we look at the things that are going wrong in the relationship, and of course we address those things and we talk to our partner about it. Some people are better at talking about those things with their partners than others. Some people are hoping that the partner's going to guess. Some people think that their partner should actually already know. There's all kinds of levels of that. But this video is specifically targeting people who have had that level of some level of that conversation, or there has been some indication that they should or want to change, and it's not happening. So that's basically what I'm going to address, and the reason this is important to me. My intention with this video and just in general is to help more people at a deeper level. And with this video specifically, my intention is to help save you from, save you from disaster such as a breakup. That would be ideal. Or if you're banging your head against the wall and you're spending months, maybe weeks or months, trying to figure out, if this situation is going to change, then I'll hold out and stay here. If it's not going to change, then I got to leave, because this is really affecting my mental or emotional health here. So it's like, if you're in that position, this video is meant for you, because I would like for you to save you some frustration down the road, some more frustration than what you're already experiencing, and resentment, anger, depression, heartbreak. All those are potential feelings that you could be experiencing in the future if you don't have the right understanding of what the core problems in your relationship are, and if you don't have the skills and the insights on what to do differently. And that's what I'm addressing. So I have a formula, I call it a blueprint formula, same thing. I have a blueprint for change that you could really walk yourself through this blueprint, these steps, in order to help you determine for yourself, is my situation likely to change? Is my partner likely to change? So I'm just going to express some of the challenges I see around this. I'm going to mention what the steps are, and I have to do it all briefly because overall I could write an entire ebook just on this entire subject, and that probably will happen at some point, either a course or an ebook. But I don't have that much time, and you don't want to spend that much time right now on that. So I'm just going to mention all the steps together in this video, and then give you some action steps at the end of the video, so at least you can get started. And then it'll definitely be my intention to do more of these videos on this subject, and possibly even a complete video on each of the steps, and then I'll put it in a playlist. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I only have so much time, so I have to do one thing at a time. But so I've been talking about this formula for years, and so now I'm finally just going to lay it all out and start talking about it even more. So so there's two main challenges that I see people having or people doing with regard to this question not being answered, not being addressed, and not knowing how to determine whether the situation is going to turn around or not. So one problem I see is that people stay in an unhealthy situation too long because they see what is wrong and they address those things. They either work on it themselves or they talk it over with your partner, and you guys are both working on those issues. I work on these things, you work on those things, and then you either are or you're not making those changes. Your partner is or is not making those changes. Either way, nothing's changing. Like, why are we still arguing? Like, I said what I was gonna, I did what I said I was gonna do. My partner did what he did, and that didn't fix the situation. So then you go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, what can it be then? Oh, okay, I know, I bet it's this. So then you go back and you're like, okay, this is what we need to change. So then you're working on yourself. Theoretically, your partner's working on him or herself, or not, because that's another issue I see common, is like people talk about change and they don't change. And I'll talk about that more when we get to the steps. But right now, let's just assume that, so your partner says he's going to make changes, you're making your changes, and then nothing is actually changing. You're still arguing. There's still lack of harmony. What's going on? And the reason you're spinning your wheels and still having problems in spite of working on the issues you see is that what you're actually doing is only working on the surface issues. It's the issues you see, but you don't see the core issues. So there's core issues are hidden underneath the surface. So you're on the surface, you're right here, you're at like ground level, so to speak, or you're above ground, and you're working on these issues, but you're not working on these issues. And these core issues are hidden from you. You can't see it because they're below ground, they're below the surface. You can't see it. So, and if you don't know where to look, if you don't know the hole to get into the ground, you don't have the shovel, you think you have a shovel, but it's not, you won't even think to look for the shovel because you have no idea that it's even there. Like if you knew that you could get a shovel and go underneath the surface to these problems, you would just do it. But because you don't know that these problems underneath the surface exist, you're not digging for them. because you're distracted, so to speak, by these surface issues. I mean, it seems obvious that these issues are it. It's like what I mentioned in another video. It's like the things you think you're arguing about are not really what you're arguing about. Like if you're having a lot of petty arguments, it's like, why are we arguing about this? This is petty. This is not even all that important to me. And your partner probably doesn't think it's important to them either. It's not really about that issue. Even if your partner will insist that it is that issue, in that moment, it is that issue. But in the next moment or in the hour, it's a different issue because that's not really what the problem is. It's these underlying things. So that's one thing that I see happening over and over again is people are working on the wrong issues. And they're just keep spinning the wheels trying to make things. I'm just reading my notes just again. Hold on a second. Or it's like they know something's wrong. They just can't put their finger on it. They know it's not these surface issues, but they just can't put their finger on what it is. It's like they know that they're not really arguing about the petty issues. I just don't know what it is. So, so you keep working on it. You keep that. This is like, I know there's something out there. There's something that is going to, I just need the right information. So you just keep, maybe you go from coach to coach, maybe you go from self-help book to self-help book, just looking for that answer that's going to help you put your finger on what the real problem is. So that's one category of challenges I see from not answering this or not knowing this formula. And then the other one is just people giving up because you've been through all those things. You feel like you've read every book, you've listened to every course. Maybe you've gone to a counselor. Maybe you've gone to 3 counselors. I've had people hire me who have been to like 4 counselors before, 3 or 4 counselors before. So maybe you are going from coach to coach, counselor, looking for the answer, and you're just defeated. You feel you just want to give up. So you do give up because you just don't know. So you either are about to give up, or you're hopeless. You're at the point of hopelessness where you just don't think that there is an option out there. And honestly, that's kind of like what my story was too when I was in my dysfunctional step family experience, which I actually now call toxic now that I have a full range of examples to draw from. At the end, when we had gone to a counselor and it didn't help, and our counselor didn't know anything about step family dynamics, so we did feel helpless. We did feel helpless, depleted. Just, I mean, like my emotional well-being was also being affected. So it would have been really helpful to know a lot of this information and these insights before our relationship got that bad. Because in my situation, it's not like, I mean, the love was there and it was mutual and it was genuine, and there's no doubt in my mind about that. But when you keep doing the wrong thing over and over and over again, and so does your partner, not knowing what the right thing is, there's the resentments pile up, and then you get to a point where it's that that hill of resentments becomes a mountain, and it's a huge thing to overcome. So I really want to save people from that. And then the third scenario that I see happening is kind of is spread across both those other categories. So there's like this overlap. where, and this is also very common, where one person feels like they're doing all the work, and that could be you. I mean, because if you're here listening to this video, it's more likely you doing the work, but you feel like your partner isn't. Or your partner, like, so you're 100% committed to working on it, but maybe that's dwindling because, you know, you're at, it goes in waves, right? Because you feel helpless, and then you get another idea, okay, I'll work on this. Then you get, you know, excited again, okay, like it's like a fresh start. This is also why fresh starts don't work in relationships. Again, it's the same thing, because you think you get this idea, you think you know what the solution is, and you work on that, and you're excited about working on that, because you think you're going to have harmony, and you think, but then it doesn't work out. So maybe you're 100% committed, and then you're only 50%. And then you're 100% committed, and then, okay, maybe you're only 40% committed, you know, and then, you know, it's like each time you get that loss or that letdown, it's hard to get back to that level of commitment that you were earlier. So eventually, you know, you stop going to 100%, and maybe your partner's already there, or maybe not. I don't know. It also depends on how many previous relationships either or both of you have had, because our failures of past relationships always lead into our current relationships, because those past relationships have reinforced that it's reinforced the belief that that the relationships don't work out for me. There's several variations of what that looks like, but when you have multiple failed relationships, they do, that level of failed relationships, and the failure does start to mount. Okay, so those are the main three categories and that I see happening. And anything else I wanted to say? Yeah, so that's basically what I want to say about that. So the blueprint for change, the steps, is await. AWAIT, await. Awareness, willingness, action plan, implementation, and tracking. And I will go through what those look like briefly. So with awareness is the first step, and actually this takes most of the work. And I also want to say too that this formula is not new. Like for the people who have read a lot of self-help books, and especially if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business owner, and I do get a certain level of those. I know I attract people who are really into the self-help and psychology, and so you will find these steps that I talk about, you will recognize them because you probably already heard them. The only thing that I did really, it's not like these steps are new. I just put them in order. I just am applying them to relationships, because it's one thing to apply them to setting a goal of weight loss. It's one thing to apply them to building your business, or to getting more income, or you know, if you're strength training for a sporting event, like a race, a marathon of some sort. You know, it's one thing to apply these steps to that, but relationships are a whole nother ball game, because the emotions and everything that are involved with it, and all the psychology and the beliefs and the unrealistic expectations and all those other things are different. So I'm just taking the steps that are already out there from a lot of experts, and I just mash them together in order to apply them to relationships, and I created the acronym to help people remember it. So I just packaged it differently. But it's not like the blueprint itself is new. like I said, just the acronym and the method. This method is new as far as what I call it. Nobody else calls it this. This is my own. Um, this is my own mashing together, if you will, my innovative way of looking at it. And I did this specifically to help clients because, as I said, the number one question I get almost all my clients ask me is he or she going to change? So I can now help them through that by helping them through these steps and what these steps look like. So you're probably familiar with the statistic that awareness is like 84% of reaching your goal is awareness. So if you accomplish the awareness aspect of this blueprint for change, you're already more than halfway there. So congratulations. But it is huge to get the awareness. And what I want to say is that awareness is, I mean, a deep awareness. I mean, an emotional awareness. I mean, an awareness of what the problem is from your perspective and the solution. So this is part of the reason why people don't change. And more to the point, they don't change in the way you want them to change. Because that's really what's causing the disharmony. Is in relationships, we have a preconceived notion in our mind of how we want our partner to change. And I do include myself in this because again, we all do this. It's just when you work on yourself a long time and you understand these steps and you understand the psychology and you understand interaction and you learn and you work on the communication skills and all those things, then it gets easier to navigate through all of these things so you can get to the point of working through them easier and quicker, and then you can answer kind of like your own questions, and it takes a lot of time, practice. It's a skill set in and of itself, but I can teach you that skill set. You can learn that skill set. So it's doable. It's just, it takes a lot of work. So, but I still include myself in this because there's still times I'm like, why does he do that? You know what I mean? It's right now I'm single, but I do have a roommate. He's my best friend. So that's kind of what I mean. I don't actually, it's kind of different, but it's the same. So, but anyway, but this is also the case with our sibling relationships, co-workers, if you're in a social organization, and it's the same kind of thing. So anyway, so what we're really talking about is like you're asking, and this is for you to answer the question for you, is your partner going to change? So what you want to ask yourself, does your partner really understand exactly what it is you're asking? Like a full awareness of what the problem and solution means to you. And one of the things that often we do is we just ask our partner if they understand, and they say yes, and we end the discussion and move on. But we do not ask them to explain it back to us. And this is a misstep. This is a mistake. You're shooting yourself in your foot by not asking them to explain back to them what it looks like. And because most often, if they're not actually making those changes, especially if they said they understand and then they don't change and you're really frustrated because they didn't, it's likely that they didn't really understand what the problem is. And the other thing is, they're part of the awareness thing with the solution is that awareness that your solution is better than theirs. So the awareness in the way that I mean it means complete buy-in that the problem as you see it is a real problem. Most often what is actually happening is they don't actually see it as a, they don't make it a priority because it's like, yeah, it's a problem. But if you were to ask them to rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how big of a problem it is, it's likely, and if you were to also rate it, most likely if they're not making the change, it's because they're rating that problem on as a lower priority. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, it might be a 2 or a 4 to them, where it's like an 8 to you. Like this is a huge problem. Like I don't understand why you don't see this as a problem. So you, in order for them to, your partner to actually make a change that you want, they actually have to see that. They have to rate that problem at a really important level, because they're not going to make that change unless they actually see it as a really, really, really big problem. Like, and by problem, I mean like these are all of the extra challenges and hoops that they're jumping through as a result of this problem that you're laying out to them. It's like, because of this problem, because of this thing that you're doing this way and I want you to do that, because of that, this is going wrong, that's going wrong, we could save money on this, we could, and it's not always a matter of saving money. It's like, I mean, sometimes they're just going to say they're going to change it just to make you happy because they really don't want to argue about it. And I mean, like, honestly, you can blame them. I mean, none of us really want to argue. It's just, sometimes it's a matter of getting you to shut up, especially if you're the type of person who nags. And you may not be, it doesn't really matter, because even if you're not the type of person who nags, it's still going to be a problem, right? So, but that's what I see happen. So they have to, and then, so that in itself is a huge obstacle. It's a, I don't want to call it an obstacle, but it's a bit of a hill to a mountain, depending on the problem, your partner, depending on what kind of, how well you can communicate the secondary and tertiary problems based off of this one thing that you want to change. So there's a lot of things that come into play on getting your partner's awareness of that problem to be at even a priority, that it's a problem. So basically, that's really what I mean. It's like you want your partner to see it as a priority, not just to agree that it's a problem, but really understand why it's a problem in the depth of their being, you know, so it has to be deep awareness. And then after that, the rest of the awareness aspect is your solution. Now, it would be helpful if they agree that it's a problem at the same rating as you, like say on a scale of 1 to 10, you rated it as an 8, and they rated it as an 8, you know, amen. You're already at like 70% right there. Now you have to work through the solution. Like, what is your solution? And now they have to agree to your solution in order for them to change. Now, have you worked through that solution? Have you actually talked through all the steps of what that solution looks like? What time of day is these changes going to be done? That's another thing. Is like sometimes it's like it comes to adding another thing in somebody's schedule. I mean, now we're all really busy. I mean, like I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, like I make my own schedule, but I still so in some ways I'm a little bit more flexible, but I'm also extremely busy, like all the time. And some weeks are busier than others. And as an entrepreneur, you know, sometimes I do like late nights, and then sometimes I might do an extended personal day. So sometimes I do weekends, sometimes I don't, you know. But everybody else who has like some people do 10-hour jobs, and then they have extracurricular activities, they have hobbies, they have social organizations, they're you know, like whatever, like they're going to the gym, they're doing meditation, they're they joined in this group or that group. I mean, like everybody. Oh, and of course, parents. You know, like your kids take a lot of time. It's like I know I don't have to tell you moms twice. You know, it's like especially if you have multiple kids at like a grade school level or preteens. You know, you're driving them everywhere to all of their extracurricular activities after school, or they're picking up from school. I mean, it's like and some nights it's like it seems like that's all you do is like drive the kids around, drop this one off, pick that one up, and when they become teenagers, hopefully, they can drive themselves and that becomes a little easier, but still, I mean, it's like you still have to deal with dinner and all that other stuff. So it's like there's so many demands on our time. You have to actually, if your solution is about adding something to the schedule, you want to figure out when in the day it's going to be done, or it's not going to get done. So that's part of the solution. And again, now if your partner is like all on board and he's got complete buy, or she's got, I'm sorry with the gender thing because I am female, like I tend to automatically use the he, so I kind of like automatically sometimes put myself into one position, but just please interchange the genders, whatever gender is most comfortable for you, he, she, they, them, because it's really a people situation. It has nothing to do with gender at all, because every single it's a human condition, it's a human challenge, not a gender challenge. So so where was I? So your partner has complete buy-in to the problem. Then it would be really helpful if you're open to his solution, because once your partner has complete buy-in, they may have their own solution, and if they're not buying into your solution, you may just want to experiment with their solution just to get some movement and traction. But just as a quick reminder, the very last step of this blueprint is tracking, and that is totally meant to actually monitor, assess how effective the change is. So once you're on board and you're doing it, then there's a step in place to assess the situation and to reevaluate. So I would encourage you to be open to what your partner's solution is. So and then you're well on your way, like woohoo! I mean, now you got buy-in to the problem, and like wholeheartedly they bought into the problem, and they're like, oh my gosh, we got to do this thing, like oh my, and they're like you can see it in their face and their emotion, or animated like I am, it's like they're going to be gung-ho and wanting to fix this thing that they now know is a problem. And because especially if it's going to lead to harmony, yeah, because we all want that in a relationship, right? We don't really want to break up. Most of us, I mean, like all my clients are already they're in love. They know they're in love. It's not, the love is not what's in question here. It is, just the problem solutions. So, anyway, so that's the awareness piece. So, and then problem solution, now you're really got to go to the next step is willingness. So the thing with the willingness is sometimes what happens is once they realize what the problem is, now they completely understand what the problem is wholeheartedly and what that solution looks like, they're not willing to do it. I have two examples with this. One is a client, and this couple they were both very health oriented. They both ate very consciously. They were very physically active, and like they were skiing and hockey and other kinds of sports and physical activity like that. And I think they were doing some sort of like races or contests, and I don't remember. It's going back years. But so even though they were both health conscious, they still had some differences in regard to what it looked like to eat healthy at home. And so she wanted some, so he was here with his health, and like she was here. And they couldn't mesh it together, and this was causing a lot of issues. I mean, especially with the kids, because like in a step family, these things are exasperated. Like if you're in a step family, you know what I mean, because the step parent does not have his or her own influence. It's not natural. It's kind of earned. So the kids will 9 times out of 10 just gravitate to the biological parents' ways of doing things, regardless of what they are, because they don't know any better. I mean, that sounded bad, but you know what I mean? It's like they're naturally, like they're going to naturally gravitate to what their parent does because they think that that's the right way, because they don't earn the knowledge for self. I mean, like all of us grow up trusting our parents in those younger years. So in a step family, it becomes even more of an issue because now the step parent feels all alone. It's like like in this case, the stepmom felt that her way of eating was healthier than and healthier for the kids. I mean, this is definitely, she was genuinely concerned about the kids, and one of the daughters had some food issues that they weren't really sure what it was, and they were trying to narrow it down. So there's definitely a lot of arguing with regard to this. So and so he was going to try what she wanted, and so he worked through that, and so they were trying what she wanted, and that was how he became fully aware of what that problem and solution looked like. But then after the fact, he was like, he realized he just didn't want to do it. It was like the amount of work that it takes to be healthier is not worth it. And so he was not willing to go the next step. So in other words, I know what the problem solution is. I'm just not willing to do it. Sometimes it's because maybe we have to go back to step A, awareness on reinforcing or recommunicating or communicating better what those problems are and the secondary and tertiary problems of the first problem are, in order to get more buy-in. But basically, if they've gone that far and they're just not willing to do it, it's a lot harder to go back and get them to reevaluate. So in that scenario, change is not likely to happen. And the second example I have in the case of like my situation, with regard, like my ex was codependent, and I think for me, I don't think I didn't have the word codependent to describe it at the time. So I didn't really understand it until years later. But when at the point that we talked about, we had separated, we were talking about getting back together, and I had told him what the problem solution was. and he just outright told me, I'm not willing to do that. And it was linked into his codependency, which also had a lot of issues with regard to, like, because codependency has so many emotional, deeper emotional issues and subconscious stuff and wounded inner child. So there's other reasons why someone might say, I'm not willing to do that. But unless they tell you they're not willing, you know, you're fumbling through. So it's helpful to actually work on these communication issues so that you get to the point of really, you know, 100%, yes, they're willing, or no, they're not. And then you make a more informed decision. Well, they're not willing to make this change. Is this something I can live with? Is there other things that I can change in my own life for me to make this a non-issue for me? So then that takes you into a realm of something that you can work on, because again, it goes back to you. So I say again, but I don't think I had mentioned that. But really, it's like you want to get traction. The more you can put the steps onto you on what you can do differently, the more likely you're going to gain traction on the whole thing. But a partnership, a relationship is built on a partnership. So harmony is in order for harmony to happen, both people have to be working on it. And so at some point, you know, you both have to get to an agreement. And sometimes it's just you. So again, the communication is based off of your partner saying not willing to do it, but now you have to go back to you. The ball is back in your court. What are you going to do about it? Is there other things you're going to change? And the more you can have things in your court, that's what I want. I just like, my methods are about helping you figure out what you have direct control over, what you have direct influence over, so that you're not spinning your wheels. And that's how you optimize your efforts. So that's how you gain traction, because you're actually working on the things that you can change instead of spinning your wheels trying to change things that are never going to change. So then once they're willing, then you get to the action plan. That's when you plan what it's going to look like. And then we already went through a little bit like of the solution. The solution part of that was the action plan, right? Because I said you have to figure out when in the day to actually work on it. But what other steps are, it's like, what exactly does that look like? Let's have an action plan. Let's write this down. Let's actually get this in writing. That's like, you don't have to get it in writing. It doesn't really matter if it's in writing or not, although that's helpful. I mean, I do help couples create a family mission statement. So if you have like, even if you just write the goal down, if you just have a family mission statement, that's an action plan. It's like how you have to really think about, you have to plan how you're going to implement this. What changes am I making? What changes are my partner making? What changes are the kids making? When are they making those changes? How are they making those changes? How long is it going to take for those changes to make? So like everybody knows what their role is in making those changes. So everybody has an action step. You have to know what your action steps are, okay, or else you're never going to gain traction. You have to have that plan. And again, I mean, it's like if you've read a lot of self-help books, you already know that. It's like you have to have a plan. So, and then implementation is just what it sounds like. It's like, now you have to do it. You have to get up and you do it. And you have to work hard at it. Like now you're changing behaviors. Now you're stepping outside your comfort zone. Maybe your partner is stepping outside his comfort zone or her comfort zone, their comfort zone. The kids are doing things that maybe you're asking kids to do things that they've never ever done before in their life. So that implementation is really important, and maybe you could spend a lot of time in the implementation. again, like most of the hardest part of the work is already done, because like the awareness, willingness, action plan, you got to the implementation step, at least you have buy-in. So even if you're having challenges with regard to how it gets implemented, doing things different in a way, there's like a learning curve for multiple people. So even if you're working through that, again, because you have the buy-in, you just keep trying. You just, every day after day, you just keep trying. And then the tracking aspect, I recommend 40 days tracking. You, like I created a spreadsheet that I use for myself. And like every day I just make a note, like a check mark. Yes, I did the thing. Minus, I didn't, I kind of did it. I did it, but it wasn't as good as I did. So I do a minus. If like I completely forgot to do the thing, I put an X. So, and you should have that tracking sheet for, you should have one, your partner, the kids, whoever's making the change. Sometimes I don't do the spreadsheet. I just write it on my calendar. I just like count out 40 days and just on my calendar every day, I just put either a check mark, a dash, or an X just to track it. Because if you're not tracking it, you'll forget. Because these are things you've never done before, so you'll forget. That's how we work. It's like in order to form a new habit, you have to do it 21 days consecutively in order to form a new habit. That's how the brain works. That's the psychology of the brain. But the reason why I suggest 40 days is because there's going to be days that you don't do it, especially in the beginning. You might be gung ho for the first few days, but then you're going to have like this really chaotic day that is weird and just doesn't fit in, and you just didn't have time to do it. You just forgot. You woke up late, whatever, you know, traffic jams, car accident, hopefully not. But so those type of things happen. And so you need to have some tracking in place so that you keep yourself on track. And if you have, and over time, if the tracking reveals that it's not getting done, or it's not getting done in a good way, then maybe you revisit that action plan. Maybe you tweak it. That's when you go back to your action plan and says, maybe there's something else going on here. Maybe there's something else that we're not seeing. But again, once you get to this part, you know, you have buy-in for the problem solution, then you just keep working at it, and maybe you can sort of coach it. Like if you've tried this action plan like 3 or 4 times and without success, there might be something else going on. So you might want to book an appointment with the coach about that. And definitely I am available for that. So tips. So yeah, so that the blueprint is a weight to change, awareness, willingness, action plan, implementation, and tracking. And basically the tips is to, for self-empowerment, I have to basically, the first one is to know why you're doing it. You personally need to know, one, why you're staying in this relationship. If you're ready to give up on a relationship, know why you're ready to give up on the relationship. The problem that you see, you have to know 100% why is that a problem, and what's the word I'm looking for? It's like it's like, where are your exceptions? Like is that a deal breaker? That's the word I was looking for. Is it a deal breaker if this doesn't get changed? So that's knowing those things is where your self-empowerment lies. Like for me personally, in my situation, it's like I spent many months on this question, is the situation going to change? And I was definitely one of the spinning the wheels type. I was like, kept finding oh, I know what the problem is. We'll work on this. And or solution. I think I know what the solution is. I'll work on those things. Then it didn't work out. I got let down. And then I would go back to the drawing board. So it's like after you do this several times, you could spend months in that question. Is this going to change? Is he going to change? Should I stay or should I go? And we broke up and got back together like many times. And I want to say the last year before I left, I probably revisited that question. I don't want to put a number on it, but a lot, probably most of that last year. I mean, I kept asking myself that question. But the thing is, I always came back to the same answer. I always knew why I was staying. I'm not going to share that with you because it's a personal reason, but I definitively knew why I was staying. So even when I left, I not once ever regretted staying as long as I did, because there was never any doubt in my own mind on why I was there in the first place. So even though aspects of it turned into a toxic situation that I didn't see coming to that extent, and a lot of it was, I did go through a lot of heartbreak, resentment, anger. If you listen to any of my other videos, so but in spite of all of those feelings and confusion, I didn't regret. I didn't have any regret. That was one of all the emotions that I felt. Regret was not one of them, because I knew why I was staying, and I chose to stay. Repeatedly, over and over and over again, I chose to stay. That's the self-empowerment. And then when I left, I knew why I was leaving, so I never regretted leaving. That was where my self-empowerment lies, and that's what I want to impart to you. That's the first step. It's like, because I hear that a lot, people regret staying as long as they did. And then, you hear about the one that got away, and usually that's not for long-term relationships, that phrase. But, you do once in a while hear people who have had a divorce, and they're like, I wish I would have found the solution. I wish I would have worked at it if I had only known then what I know now. So, you have to be that self-awareness of why you're doing what you're doing, why you're staying. And hopefully you're not choosing to go just yet, but if you are, know why you're going. And then if you do make that choice, choose to lead with grace. And that is its own skill. It's hard to, so that's a choice too. So and the second tip is to be more concerned about whether you're doing the work than your partner or the kids. So if you're in a step family, it's hard to not be concerned if the kids are doing their thing or not, because we're all concerned about the kids growing up being independent and thriving and happy. And so step parents and parents alike all feel that way about their kids and the step kids. But the thing is, if you and your partner are not on the same page, if you and your partner are not working together as a teamwork, then you're spinning your wheels worrying whether the kids are doing it or not. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it until you and your partner are working as a teamwork. It's working as a team. And I work with that too. That's the psychology of step family dynamics. So you don't want to, because everyone's blaming it on each other, but in actuality, it's the step family dynamics that is actually the underlying issue. So these core issues that I'm talking about, if you're in a step family, most likely they're related to step family dynamics. It's a science. The psychology of step family dynamics is probably really what the core issues are. And if you're not in a step family, I can still help you discover what those core issues are. But be more concerned about whether you're doing the work or not. Because if you, I should say, when you show up differently, people will react to you differently. I'll say that again because this is really important. When you show up differently, i.e., you have a different tone of voice, you're making different actions, you're doing different things in a different way, other people will respond accordingly. So that I can talk a lot just on that alone, just the expectations. They're not going to change immediately because they're still going to expect the old you to come back. So that's based off of old expectations. They're going to continue to react to the way you used to be, even if you start doing things different. But if you hold out and you keep doing things different, then at some point they will actually start doing things different. And if they don't, then I want to caution you not to leave too soon, again, because there's still this process that we just talked about. But there might be something else going on if you really keep changing and you're doing the things and you're doing all the work and nobody else is doing anything. Maybe that is when you evaluate that it's time to leave. Because for some of you watching this, you're probably already there. If you're feeling emotionally, I can't say emotionally depleted because every single one of those categories I mentioned, it's emotional. But I mean, yeah, that's got to be its own video. But it does come down to mental health and emotional health. So you really do need to make sure that your needs are being met first and foremost, and that you're able to be true to yourself. If you're not able to be true to yourself in your environment, if you are not able to live authentically the way you want, then there's things that need to be changed. And I want to help you change them because you deserve, because you'll not be happy until you're living your authentic self, until you're living who you are in your core, in your soul. And if you're not, then that's a slow soul death, which is sad and tragic and not necessary. So that is the complete video, and that's a little bit longer, a lot longer than I anticipated, but there's a lot of information. And if you're going through this situation, I really think that even though this video was long, it's relevant, it's all important. And I hope that I hope you found some value in it. And if you did, I hope you liked the video. If you have friends who are going through something similar, please feel free to share the video with them. I reserve all rights, so I just ask that you cite me or just send them to my channel, because I do value to help people. If you just want some feedback from me, you can comment on this video or on the discussion page. You can reach out to me personally. I'll leave it there. Okay? And thank you for tuning in, and thank you for coming to my channel, and I hope you'll be back. Thank you. Have a great day.